located north of London is York, a splendid medieval city with its magnificent cathedral. But one of my favorite places to visit is the University of Cambridge, located on the River Cam.
Hello, I'm Roger Ebert, and all three of those cities are only an hour or two away from London by car, by train, or by luxury bus. When friends of mine visit England, my advice to them is, don't just stay in London when some of the most interesting places in the whole country are only a short day trip away. We're going to take 3 of those trips on this edition of Focus on Britain. My favorite destination outside of London is the university town of Cambridge, which is only about an hour from London by rail. So your journey ends here at the Cambridge train station, and then you grab a cab in order to take a walk. After taking the train from London to Cambridge, I feel like stretching my legs, and so the first thing I do is take a cab from the train station to the start of the Grantchester Walk. Taking a cab to start a walk may sound crazy, but it's the only way you'll ever find the start of this walk, and it's a great way to spend the day. Takes you about 20 or 25 minutes down this historic old path through the fields and down the meadows next to the river to the village of Grantchester, which is a great place to have. Green Man Pub. Grantchester is a beautiful and tiny village, but it does have 3 pubs, all of them good places to have lunch before walking down the lane to the village churchyard. I only know that you may lie day long and watch the Cambridge sky and flower-lulled and sleepy grass hear the cool lapse of hours pass until the centuries blend and blur in Grantchester. Lines written by the village's most famous son, Rupert Brooke, who was born here, who attended Cambridge, and who died in the First World War. This memorial commemorates the village sons who died in that war, but Rupert Brooke is not buried here. He's buried on an island in the Aegean Sea, and that would tend to fulfill the prophecy of his most famous poem, in which he wrote, "If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England." When you finish the walk back from Grantchester, you can see above the trees in the distance some of the towers of Cambridge. And if you sort of aim in that direction and maybe ask instructions once or twice, in 5 or 10 minutes you'll be at Scudmore's punting pier on the River Cam, where you can rent a punt like this and see the colleges of Cambridge from the river. My guide today is Justin Wrigley, and he seems to know everything there is to know about Cambridge as seen from the Cam.
Okay, right, well, this little bit we're just going past now is in between the 2 sides of the river of Clare College. And Clare is the second oldest of the Cambridge colleges, and their gardens on my right are reputed to be the prettiest gardens in Cambridge. They seem to ever be for raking their lawns, picking up any little scrap of litter. I sometimes wonder whether they go out every morning and comb the grass into position. Okay.
Well, that is one of the most magnificent sights you can imagine.
That's right. You can see King's College finishes with the chapel, which is a tall building, sometimes referred to as the sow on her back. The chapel itself, built during the reigns of King Henry VI, Henry VII, and Henry VIII, hence its kings, plural. The roof seems so high, the work on top of it is so intricate, and the pipes on the organ, bright, polished gold, absolutely stunning. And the chapel itself took over 100 years to build. The main reason for it taking so long was that the stained glass windows were very, very carefully prepared, that during the Second World War, all the windows were taken out and put in storage. So should Cambridge get bombed, they'd be saved. Inside the chapel, at the east end, behind the altar, there's a painting by Rubin of the Adoration of the Magi. That's just one of the few things that make up the incredible interior to the chapel. The Bridge of Sighs.
So this is modeled on the bridge in Venice, I mean.
That's right, where it's so called because as people are led from the palace to the jail, having been sentenced to death, they're meant to see the outside world for the last time in sight. It's more than likely that a few students have crossed over having taken their finals and sighed at the prospect of having failed them or something.
Actually prevented its students from going any further than this.
That's right. The marketplace, which has been, in fact, the marketplace of the town for about a good 900 years, was placed out of bounds for the students during the Middle Ages because there were always sort of problems between the townspeople and the students, university. We refer to this kind of problem as the difficulties between town and gown.
What were they fighting over?
Well, the townspeople used to say that the students behaved very badly, that they were drunk and disorderly and caused sort of fracas in the city. And the students, on the other side, said that they were being overcharged for rather miserly kind of lodgings. And there was just this kind of friction. Also, of course, the university had a very privileged position, or it established a very privileged position within the town fairly early on, by the 14th century or so. And the students had certain privileges which the townspeople didn't have, and this also caused further enmities. The town itself has been here for 2,000 years. This is something that some people don't know. It was in fact founded by the Romans. And they sort of established a crossing here. That was the only place they could actually cross the river.
I'm going to make a brilliant guess that that's how the town of Cambridge got its name.
Exactly, yes. The river is called the Cam. The Romans might well have been the first ones to build the first bridge of Cam Bridge.
So the visitor to Cambridge can come into this market and buy everything from apricots and peaches to handicrafts and
yes, it's a very
rock and roll records.
Yes,
underwear.
Indeed.
Most of the market towns only have market once or twice a week, or
once or twice a week. Yes, it depends. But here, there's always been this a daily market, which is an advantage. The Great St. Mary's Church, the church that we have here in the Market Square, is a particularly interesting church. It's known as the University Church. It's also used by the town. It's a local parish church as well. And through the centuries, it's been shared by the citizens of Cambridge and the university. If you climb to the top of the tower, you can have a very beautiful view of the whole town, and you can see the layout, you can see the position of the colleges. And the interesting thing about Cambridge is that you have these colleges right in the middle of the town. I mean, the colleges are all part of the town life, if you like. It all goes on within the same confines. Right, well, in Cambridge, we have many, many old churches which date back to medieval times and before. But I've brought you to this particular one, St. Benet's Church, because here we've got, in fact, the oldest tower in Cambridge. It's the oldest building in Cambridge and the oldest building in Cambridgeshire. It's an Anglo-Saxon tower. Dates back to 1020. It was built about 1020, just before the Norman conquest, before William the Conqueror in 1066. The interesting thing also about this church is that originally it was used as the college chapel for Corpus Christi College, which is the college just next door.
There are also shopping areas and fascinating side streets to explore in Cambridge, and of course the treasures of the Fitzwilliam Museum, where I was shown around by the director, Professor Michael Jaffe.
There were so many different collections here at the Fitzwilliam, it almost seems like a microcosm of 6 or 7 of the big London museums.
Well, that's what's come about, I'm glad to say, by careful choice and a wonderful start. We don't have anything like the number of objects and paintings. We have very select, very carefully chosen things, and that puts us in a very good position. We are not over large. We don't have to tax the footwork of our visitors to make them tired out before they've seen what they've come to see.
Professor Jaffe took me on a tour of the museum, showing me some of his favorite objects, including an extraordinary wall in the Italian room with 3 16th century paintings that were purchased on the same day in London in the early 1800s by Viscount Fitzwilliam, the founder. They were Paolo Veronese's Hermes, Hirsi, and Aglaurus, Palma Vecchio's Venus and Cupid, and Titian's Venus and Cupid with a lute player. Fitzwilliam has an impressive collection of French Impressionists, including this landscape by Renoir. Another impressive place that many people visit when they're near Cambridge is the Cambridge American Military Cemetery. When they come here, they may be surprised to find a long wall filled with the names of those who were killed or missing in action during World War II. A memorial seems to predict the much larger Vietnam War Memorial in Washington. This area of England was home to a great number of American air and military training bases for 2 excellent reasons. 1, because it was flat, and 2, because it was near Germany. And many of the people who died with the American forces are buried here in the Cambridge American Military Cemetery, where the rows of white crosses on a quiet summer day like today make a moving memory of the cause they died for.
Our second destination is the city of Bath, again just a short journey from London.
Bath has been famous as a spa since the Middle Ages, but it first became fashionable with British society in 1702 after Queen Anne's first visit here. And it was at that time that the modern city of Bath began to take shape with its beautiful buildings and its attractively laid out streets. This is the pump room, built in 1794, and since that time, it would be safe to say that no British notable has failed to visit here, including most of the members of the royal family. It was in this room that Jane Austen set scenes from 2 of her novels in which visitors to Bath came to take the restorative and medicinal waters and to bathe, which is how the city got its name. So how long have these baths actually been here?
Well, Roger, they were built in the 1st century AD by the Romans, who used them for 300 or 400 years. And when the Romans left, the buildings collapsed, were buried, other towns were built over the top, and they were only rediscovered 100 years ago, in the 1880s, purely by accident.
So this was all just waiting here for all of those centuries in order to be reopened.
Indeed, yes. And until people have started coming in recent times, we know that Bath as a spa thrived on hot springs in baths elsewhere. Now we know the Romans came here and used this water for spa purposes as well.
Of what we see here, what was here in Roman times? These pillars here, obviously, or?
That's right. Everything up to about a height of about 5 feet was here in Roman times. The rest of it is Victorian stonework. This was the curative bath. This was a purpose-built swimming pool and unique because of the presence of the hot water. But at each end of this complex, there are the normal kind of Roman baths, Turkish baths, sauna baths, cold plunges, where you would go for your daily scrape down to remove all the dirt and the filth from your body and set you up tingling fresh for each day. Well, as well as being a series of baths, this place also had a magnificent temple to the goddess Sulis Minerva. This was a joint Celtic and Roman goddess, and she was a goddess of healing. And so people made pilgrimages here from all over the Roman Empire. We have evidence for this. They came and they worshipped at the temple, they prayed for healing there, then they came around and swam in these waters to seek that healing.
Stephen Burr was explaining that the baths are 20 feet below the street level of the modern city because the city of Bath was literally built on the stones of the earlier cities that were here. This abbey, for example, is the 3rd one on its site, and it is 10 feet below the level of the modern city streets. It was here in 973 that the first king of England, Edgar, was crowned, and the abbey is built with the soft local limestone that gives the city its characteristic color and texture. My guide in Bath was Jane Glazer, a former secretary to Prime Minister Edward Heath, who now lives here and seems to know everything about the town. She started our walk at Priory Park above the city, an enormous building that was built as an advertisement.
Yes, it was built by Ralph Allen, who had acquired a first fortune reorganizing the postal service and then reinvested his money into the land here and acquired with it the stone. And built the house to show the people staying in the city below what a wonderful material it was for house building.
Does royalty still come here to Bath?
Yes, we know that the Princess Diana, the Princess of Wales, loves to come to Bath to shop. So people are always looking out for her.
We have now come straight across the Avon Valley to the other side of Bath, and the thing that impresses me about the city is how consistently it keeps the same architectural look. It hasn't just grown up willy-nilly like so many cities. There must have been a plan behind it right from the beginning.
There was a grand plan devised by John Wood the Elder. It wasn't actually carried out. And I think the thing that which gives it its great uniformity is the fact that it was all built within a very short period and all built of the same stone.
The crescent as an idea, the half-moon shape of this sort of architecture seems to be unique in Bath. How did it start out? How did they arrive at this idea?
Well, it started in Bath, and I really am not certain why, but I suspect when John Wood the Younger looked at the land on which he was going to build and saw how it fell away, he realized it would be very much cheaper to follow the line of the hill than to put in the massive foundations he would have needed for a straight street.
Why do you think it is that Bath, of all English cities, is the one that has grown up in this way? Both in terms of the elegance of the Nash period and also in terms of the architectural elegance and the overall look. Is there something about the local life here, about the people who live here?
It was certainly that the people here were smart enough to grab the opportunity that was presented to them. And there were men who were there just at the right moment. We talked about Ralph Allen at Prior Park. He owned the stone. He was an astute businessman. He wanted to exploit it. And he encouraged John Wood, who was a young and very ambitious architect, who was ripe for encouraging. Nash, on the other hand, who was reigning in Bath at the time, was attracting the sort of clientele who could afford luxurious holiday homes. And so the whole thing came together as a wonderful opportunity, and the people here were smart enough to grab that opportunity.
Some famous people must have lived here over the years, I imagine.
Yes, and certainly the most interesting of all for this present, I think, was a man called William Beckford, who was called England's richest son. He inherited enormous fortunes from his grandfather, who had sugar plantations in the West Indies. And he used the money for all sorts of extravagances, wild parties, drinks, drugs, and women, I suspect, in his youth, and boys, I'm sorry to say. And then he came to Bath in his old age and lived in the house behind you. He lived here, he wrote here, he brought up his daughters here, and he built. He was a compulsive builder. He built on the hillside behind the Crescent a wonderful terraced vegetable garden, and up on top of the hill behind his farm, a tower with a library and a chapel. And he would go there every day, riding by horseback from here, to sit in the tower, read, and contemplate the view.
This is the tower that Beckford built, and this is the tomb where he lays, built above the ground and surrounded by a moat because he had a morbid fear of being eaten by worms. A macabre but interesting place to end our visit to Bath, and a reminder of some of the other places we haven't had time to see, such as the American Museum, the Assembly Rooms, and Robert Adams' Pulteney Bridge with its sidewalks lined with shops. The attractive thing about Bath is how close it is to London, how easy to reach. 2 hours by road, an hour and a half by rail. You can come out in the morning, spend the day, go back to your London hotel at night if you don't want to spend the night. So close to London, yet one of the world's greatest cities. Cambridge, Bath, and now York, another day trip outside of London. York has been an important city since medieval times. In fact, earlier than that, this was one of the northernmost outposts of the Roman Empire. I'm sitting in the ruins of St. Mary's Abbey, which was destroyed in the years after 1539 when Henry VIII abolished the monasteries. But even as ruins, the Abbey still plays an important role in modern-day York. This is the scene every 4 years of the medieval mystery plays, a cycle of plays in which actors attempt to explain the history and the mystery of life as it would have been seen through religious eyes in the Middle Ages.
Churches have played a dominant role in the history of York over the centuries. This is York Minster, a magnificent Gothic structure which took more than 250 years to complete.
Britain has a wealth of cathedrals, but few is more impressive than York Minster, which has the largest expanse of medieval stained glass in the world. The cathedral is associated with a lot of miracles, and my favorite one involves a medieval monk named Roger of Ripon, who was standing here one day when a stone fell and hit him on the head, but he was not killed. And so, of course, this was acclaimed as a miracle. And indeed, not too many years ago, excavating outside the cathedral walls, they found an old stone on which was inscribed in Latin, "This is the stone that fell and hit Roger of Ripon on the head." And if you come to York Minster, they will show you the stone. In the last 20 years, 2 other miracles have played a dramatic role in saving the cathedral itself. The first of those modern-day miracles is one of architectural engineering. After it was determined that the cathedral was settling and cracking in 1967, they began to excavate beneath it in order to put in these enormous collars of concrete and reinforced stainless steel rods in order to hold up the cathedral for many years to come. When they excavated beneath the cathedral in order to reinforce the foundations, and they found the Norman and Roman ruins underneath, they did an interesting thing. They kept those ruins, exposed them to view, and made a pathway through them and through the foundation stones of the very cathedral itself, so that you can literally walk down from one level of history to another. On the night of July the 9th, 1984, lightning struck the roof of the south transept of the cathedral, and it was made of oak. It began to burn, but the miracle is the fire was contained to that part of the cathedral and controlled in such a way that none of the priceless stained glass windows were destroyed. My guide in York was Mark Graham, who can be seen every morning at dawn jogging around the medieval walls of the city. He met me at York's oldest gate.
Well, this is Bootham Bar, which is the oldest of the gateways. It goes back 800 years, and you can see it still has its working portcullis here.
This gate could be dropped down to...
That's right, yeah. If you drive
the city, right?
If you drive underneath, you must be very careful. You can see these cross windows here.
Yes.
Which are quite a giveaway because they were Victorian. They were placed here in 1880 to give the building a medieval look.
Oh, it's nice that they put them there. At least we can see York.
Yeah, that's right. The great delight of them is to be able to walk around these walls because they preserved the medieval city for all. If you look over your shoulder now, you can see what is one of the most beautiful of all views, and that is the Minster from the north side.
This is a magnificent view with this English garden in the foreground here. It's just a perfect setting.
Yeah. Well, if we have a little walk up here, Roger, we can just see a delightful house here, because underneath there, I'd like to bring you here, because underneath there is one of the most famous ghost stories ever to occur in Britain.
And York is the city of ghosts.
It is, and this is the most famous story, because underneath those buildings there was seen by many people a Roman legion walking through the cellar wall and across the floor. And the interesting thing was that they could never see the feet. It was as if they disappeared, as if they were walking on a road below the one, the present floor level. Mm-hmm. And it was years afterwards, when they were doing some restoration work, that they actually found a Roman cellar on the exact spot where they'd seen those ghosts. The prize of our medieval city, though, is this street here, the Shambles. Oh. And if you look down above you, you can see how narrow the street is. They do say that you can shake hands across the street. And even in days of old, snatch a kiss. It was at the feet of the butchers. So it would have been a very lively, bustling street, like it is now.
And there are still butchers on the street?
There are still 2 butchers on the street, yeah. But all the meat and such would be displayed there, you see.
Yeah.
And that's why it gets its rather unusual name.
In a very real sense, the history of British heritage began right here at Clifford's Tower in York, because, believe it or not, a preservation order was issued on this building as long ago as the 16th century, forbidding it from being torn down. There are many other places like this and many other cities like this, and the theme of this program has been that a lot of them are an easy day trip from London. I'm Roger Ebert, and maybe I'll meet you one of these days on one of those trips. In the meantime, please join us for the next edition of Focus on Britain.
Major funding for Focus on Britain is provided by United Airlines.
Come fly the airline that's uniting the world. United. Come fly the friendly skies.
Additional funding has been provided by these organizations. To request a video cassette of this program or for further information on Britain, please write to Focus on Britain, Suite 400, 11766 Wilshire Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90025.